No. Okay. Yeah. I don't know that name. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'll look at that.
I doubt it. I don't want to stay as far away from Ralph.
Oh, Ralph. So I knew Ralph before I started working there. I think before
he comes to the Common Core training.
He was good friends with one of my law partners, and he was actually our unofficial jury consultant.
Yeah, she's calling in.
He's really good at observation skills. So
we got everybody.
My law partner and I had this on the side, and we brought Ralph in to sit in the courtroom, and then when the jury selection during breaks, he would grab a hall.
Oh, Lonnie.
He had great results.
Okay.
He's really good. You probably wouldn't tell people he helped.
Ladies and gentlemen, the broadcast is already turned on. Just want you to be aware of that. We haven't started the meeting yet, but it is streaming already. Two things. Oh, yeah. He was carrying that standing
Oh, wow.
I'm one.
I've probably seen it.
Let me tell you, we went yesterday and looked at it.
We walked into something.
Just go, instead of 4S.
This is a 4S.
That's what McAndrew had. She was ready. And after sex, she's slowing down, sort of acting squirrely, quality voice call.
I've got a problem with my bicycle turn. The other place you see here.
Yep.
I hope I won't miss that.
Well,
But the traded show up.
right. She got a 5C. 5C for $1. That's what $9. Yeah, $40 upgrade charge. You don't want to pull the trigger off the stick.
Why did it have that big screen? I think I probably will, but thanks for that.
But that's so don't throw that one.
I like it.
But, wait a minute, here we go. We bought both of them up, so hopefully
That's fine. Yeah. It's just got a color.
and it was, where were you? The AT&T store. So
No, it's just 18.
That's right. No, I'm gonna, we could give you several weeks here to get prepared. Just make them together.
It's only anything I need to do. No. I mean, it'll be, so we'll go up there. I'll put on your calendar. We'll probably be up there most of the morning.
I feel better now.
And I'm going with you, so I'm shooting on there.
I don't know if you'll all go in or whatever. It's just to find out if they have any valid in and then 30 days.
It's just sort of like you have to do this, but if you don't, then what?
No, we'll have to dial in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point.
1 minute.
Yeah, I feel like without having Should have told us when they changed their address, call their name.
Hello? Teresa?
Hi, Teresa Williams.
Good morning, Teresa. It's Scott Evans. You are live and operational. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for accommodating.
Our pleasure. And we've got you on speaker now, so you're live with the grid.
And operational.
Thank you.
Teresa, be careful what you say. You're going to be broadcast across the whole state.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, you're ready whenever you wish to begin.
Okay, let's do begin. Certainly appreciate everybody being here and making this a priority. It seems like we're getting together more frequently than perhaps we had planned, but important business here, and certainly appreciate you being here, and Teresa, appreciate you being with us on the telephone. The agenda for today is, as you know, deals with charter school appeals and what we do to measure charter schools for those that we may end up with. One thing I've asked Gary to do kind of on the front end here that really wasn't on the agenda, but to kind of provide an overview of the board's role in charter school approval. We've got a lot of new members, and we've made a bunch of changes in the charter school process, so I think it'd be good to kind of make sure we're all on the same page exactly what our role is, and then we can proceed with the other items on the agenda. So with that small addition to the agenda is there a motion that we approve the agenda that we issued? So much motion, second. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. So Gary, if you would, please provide us an overview. Okay.
The deadline for receiving applications at the LEA level is April 1st. So that triggers in the timeline to move forward. The local education agency, typically through a review committee, would review the application and make a recommendation to the local board. Should the local board deny the initial application, they would so notify the applicant along with, would provide them with a discussion of areas of concern, areas of efficiency that they need to work on. The applicant would then have a period of time to resubmit, to work on their application and resubmit it as a second appeal to the local board. The local board would again review it and rate it and make a recommendation. LEA would make a recommendation to the board. Should the board approve it, then they move forward. Should they deny the amended application, then the applicant has the opportunity to appeal directly to the State Board of Education. And at that point, we would do two or three things going on. One, we would establish a review committee to take the materials to review. We would, the review committee would also conduct a interview with the applicant to determine their capacity to deliver a successful charter. And then we would go to the LEA and conduct a hearing of with both the applicant and the LEA to testify and put information on the record. Public at the hearing, there's public comments, and we bring that information back and then put it all together, and you wind up with the information you have before you today as a ultimate piece. Now, with the new legislation, it requires us to pass this past year. It authorizes the state board to become a state authorizer. That legislation also requires the state board to affiliate with and to work with policies that are national policies. We've chosen the National Charter School Authorizers Association to affiliate with, and they have helped us with these standards. If the state board approves an application, an appeal from an LEA that has a school in the bottom 5% of the schools, that you approve that list at their last phone call, then the state board would become the authorizer. Once that occurs, there is a period of time that the local board could say, well, we think we would like to reassume control and take this charter back and manage it ourselves. Or they could not do that, and it would be the responsibility of the state board to continue to supervise and going forward, just like we would become like an LEA, in essence, for the state authorized charter. If the LEA does not have a school in the bottom 5%, then the recommendation, we would not be the authorizer. If you chose to, two choices, you could either uphold the local board's decision to deny, or you could send it back to the LEA with written instructions to approve the charter. Now, that's the majority of the system. I think there's 5 or 6 counties that have schools in the bottom 5%. And here you have, in this recommendation, the first 3 are from the Shelby County area. They have schools at the bottom 5%. So if you authorize them, you are the state authorizer. The one in Cheatham County does not have schools at the bottom 5%, and you would direct them to authorize a charter should you want to do that.
Okay, any questions for Gary? I think that, it does play out in the material that we've received for this meeting, that process. Yeah.
Just one point of clarification. My understanding of the other change with the statute is that now all of the appeals are de novo to this board, correct? So from the beginning.
We handle all the appeals either way with the same
Okay. I just want to make sure that's not just a ward school.
Yeah. The only thing that's different is what happens with your action after.
Okay. Just making sure I had that right.
Okay. Questions? Tess, did he do all right?
He did okay. He did great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move forward in with the action item for first reading, which is the charter school performance framework. So if we do end up with some charter schools where we are functioning as the LEA, we'll know how to determine where they're successful or not.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you. So today I present you on first reading a performance framework that schools authorized by the State Board of Education would be measured against annually. And I want to give you all some background and context to this framework. The National Association of Charter School Authorizers states that a strong performance framework is the bedrock to high-quality authorizing, as well as a performance framework should be included in any contract that is signed with a charter school. So in developing this framework, the staff met with individuals from Metropolitan National Public Schools, the Tennessee Achievement School District, as well as the Tennessee Charter School Center to get a sense of how our performance frameworks currently used statewide and to learn the best practices that are currently in use. We also rely very heavily on NACS's document, the Core Performance Framework and Guidance, that lays out the key components to any academic, financial, or organizational framework. So the framework you're presented with today is broken down into 3 sections. You have academic, financial, and organizational. The financial and organizational sections are almost wholly based on the NACSA guidance in these measures, in these categories, and we believe that these indicators will ensure we are meeting the best practices in terms of accountability in these 2 sections. In developing the academic framework section, we looked at current academic accountability frameworks across the state and then developed a set of academic measures that we felt would be most applicable to any school that might be authorized by the state board. we break these indicators from the academic area down into three main buckets: academic growth, attainment and post-secondary readiness, and achievement gap closure. The academic growth and attainment sections are both worth 45%. The achievement gap closure measures were 10% for a total of 100%. So in this section, each school will receive a point value for their score on each measure. Then we will weight each measure, and then sum it up for a total of 100 points. In setting the ranges for each measure, we looked at the current ranges in place by other performance metrics, research currently available data on where high-performing and low-performing schools would land in these categories, and then tried to ensure we were setting a high but achievable bar for these indicators and for these schools. So schools will be placed on a 4-point rating scale based both on each individual measure as well as for total academic performance. And these ratings are falls far below standards, does not meet standards, exceeds standards, meets standards, and exceeds standards. We did put a note in the beginning that any school that falls into a far below standard for in any measure of any section, they will receive an immediate plan of action for this measure. If they have 3 consecutive years of receiving this rating, they may be recommended for immediate revocation of their charter. We believe this is very important so that we can keep a close eye on the schools as well as intervene and take action prior to the 10-year charter term should we see a struggling school. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, when we say on any of the measures, that would mean if they're far below academic growth or gap closure, any of those 3 measures, you would be recommended for.
After 3 years, I mean,
Yeah.
We understand that in the first couple of years of operation, your data is not going to be as great. But if we are consistently seeing a fall below standard on any of the academic measures or even financial organizational measures, that's going to give us a trigger that we might need to intervene sooner than that 10-year term.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, Mike?
Do we have people to do that? To monitor? Let's say that we go from 1 school to 5 schools to 6 to, you get the point. And we can look at academic performance from afar. I'm not so certain that some of this stuff, operational, wouldn't require to use a recent euphemism, boots on the ground. Do we have people to do that?
Let the staff respond to that. I think the answer, of course, it depends on the number that we end up with. But, I think that, if you get into any kind of numbers at all, more than 1 or 2, then, you're going to have to staff accordingly. I guess our anticipation is that when we wouldn't authorize one of these schools or tell one of these schools where we may end up with ownership, that the locals in many cases are going to decide that it'd be better for them to do it, and we wouldn't end up with that responsibility. But I think if it turns out we got 10 schools out there where I don't think they have staff to do that.
The legislation that passed calls for the Department of Education to provide assistance as needed as we get started into this. And it's certainly, I think you're right. If the numbers grow, you'd have to go back and consider it a budget item.
Got it. Dr. Nixon, may I comment? Excellent question, Mr. Edwards. I have had personal training experiences with SACS accreditation evaluations and then curriculum audits of school systems. So I think our staff possesses the expertise to oversee that process, but we certainly would need the assistance of the department then to execute on any kind of large scale.
Yes, Wendy?
I just sort of have a technical question. On page 9, I think it's several places where I highlighted it. when you have the chart that shows the rating system and you have percent of progress towards goal, is that the annual goal that the state sets for districts to meet?
Yes, so we try to rely on either data that's published or using targets that are already set by the department in our internal calculations. So that would be taking an average of how far they achieve their goal on a number of different achievements. And it would depend on if they're high schools, we're obviously looking at the annual targets, and then, so that's what that is.
Okay, so the goal is the state goal. Okay, and then the meets standards, some of these, and I know a lot of these schools, kids are coming in a couple grade levels behind, but you said this is going to be at year 3 when we're going to be really holding their feet to the fire. And will some of this maybe get more rigorous? I mean, 30% of kids with a 21 on the ACT.
You know, we talked, that one is, and specifically, we did go kind of around and around. And just for context, and when we're looking at, in 2014 data, what percentage of high schoolers in Tennessee met that 21, it was 19%.
Right.
So 30% is a high bar compared to the currently available data. However, you know, if the board decides we want to go higher, that's certainly a discussion, something we can look into. But, you know, compared to current data, 30% is higher than we are currently achieving.
I guess my question is, that's all based on data that you've looked at. Is that flexible in the future if we come back and these schools, I mean, I don't want to, I know what happened, but I don't want a great school to get, you know, the first year they have high school kids get 35% and then be able to be like, we're there.
Absolutely. But do know that, you know, this would be included in a contract, so any changes to this, we would have to go back into contract and negotiation.
Okay.
So I think, you know, when NACSA was here in July, their point was try to get it as close to possible, but I think we all need to be realistic that there might be something in here that has, and it's, once we know what the assessments might look like regarding Common Core, we will have to change this.
Okay, great, thank you.
Another comment, just that when we had a lot of discussion about this, and when we were talking about a statewide policy, obviously, it necessarily has to be incredibly general. So to that end, you know, I think we're aware we didn't want to get in the position of opening schools and authorizing schools only to realize that there was going to be a 3-year window before we were going to have to take them out of business.
Right.
And that was, we had tons of discussion around this ACT measure. And this is probably, you know, we felt it was a pretty pragmatic number and aspirational for a lot of kids, actually.
Okay, great, thanks.
Page 11, financial performance. You know, where it says 3 or more successive years of ratings that could include measures we fall far below. Is there any possibility an entity that is having financial performance problems, that intervention can be made sooner?
Certainly, and I think that is a part of the contract that we would put together, that we would have to be, I mean, if they simply cannot meet their payroll, that's, yes, and, you know, I'm not aware of training, so I will defer to others, but I think in the writing of the contract, you know, we can certainly have that if you simply can't pay your teachers, yeah, that's an intervention point.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions or comments? One question I had, Tess, on page 10, right at the bottom of the page, the first column on that page, we got falls far below standards. I wonder if we don't need a bullet there. It says first and second year less than 30 days cash.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? This is on first reading. We'll have a chance to we'll bring it back to the October meeting for final approval. I'm assuming that you used a great deal of this material from the charter school people that, I mean,
Yes.
a lot of it's been
Basically,
tested to some extent.
That's correct. Pages 9 through the end of the document are pretty much from the Nexus document.
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve on first reading? So, a motion, second. Any other discussion, question? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, we'll now move to the charter school appeals, and Gary, you can do that.
I'll do that. Before I move into it, A, B, and C from Shelby County. And Shelby had a total of 13 applications. They approved 9 of the 13, and ultimately denied 4. And of the 4, 3 appealed to the state board. The apples here is A, B, and C. D is from Cheatham County. Cheatham County had 1 application. They denied the application that's appealed here. He put it in some instances of context for you. When the application was first reviewed, the review committee, and this is for Emerge, first rated the application as does not meet in all 4 of the areas. They provided the opportunity for Emerge to amend their application. It was amended, and it was rated on the academic plan and design as meets or exceeds. The operational plan and capacity does not meet. Financial plan and capacity partially meets, and then the additional attachments just meets or exceeds. The State Board Review Committee, you see listed there as the number 7, reviewed the application. They also conducted the capacity interview. And at the time of appeal, Emerge filed amendments to the application, which they have opportunity to do that. You see those areas that were amended in. The state review team rated the application as partially meets in all 4 areas. And since we have an obligation to be sure that we feel comfortable that we're going to authorize a charter school, that they have a good possibility of being successful, they need to have met or exceed in all 4 areas. For that reason, my recommendation to you is to accept the recommendation of the review committee and affirm the decision of Shelby County Board.
Okay, questions for Gary on Emerge? Wendy?
It's going to be a pattern, sorry. But at least I kill trees for a reason, right? So I have a couple questions that are sort of apply to all 4, and I guess I'll ask them now at the beginning. So my understanding is the review committee, each of the 8 people individually did the rubric, right? I'm sorry, right?
Yes.
Each one individually completed a rubric, and then you got together and reached a consensus.
Yeah, so the process was that each of the review committee had a selection of sections that they were responsible for in their comfort areas, and I think it ended up being 7 or 8, and that then spread across, probably at least 3 people reviewing each section. And then we had a pre-call to the capacity interview. So they turned in their initial rubrics. We then had a pre-call to get on the same page and also develop questions for the interview. Then we held the capacity interview, did a debrief, and they turned in their final rubrics to come up with a consensus report.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to name names, but were there, prior to the consensus conversation, were there different opinions on some of them between the people who had interviewed? Some find they met, some find they didn't meet.
Absolutely. I mean, when you break it down to individual sections, there were some people who were going to say partially meet. There were some people who were going to say does not meet. I mean, and that's a part of the consensus to hear other people's views and kind of to get on the same page.
Okay. All right. And one other, maybe I missed it. Did this school of the 4, This is the only school where I couldn't see where they had a proposed school leader. Do you know, did Emerge actually have a proposed school leader yet, or?
They had a proposed executive director
Okay,
who was the sponsor.
right,
But I don't think that they had identified a specific principal in that role yet.
okay. And that was one of the, I think, one of the deficiencies that was noted as far as confidence in the ability, but I couldn't tell if that was because there wasn't one mentioned or not. I couldn't find one. Okay. That's all my questions on this one.
And,
So, excuse me,
Yeah,
it
Teresa.
was a unanimous decision by the independent review committee to deny this application, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
and one other question on all the three from Memphis, were all of the internal, the local system review committee, are they all Shelby County employees or?
Yes.
It wasn't
And
clear?
they had a parent involved as well, but they had a little bit of a community representation, but the vast majority were Shelby County employees.
I have one question. In the future, can we include the titles of the local authorizer review committee members?
That would be
It'd be
good.
helpful. I know we did it on the independent review, and it was really helpful for me.
Absolutely.
That would be.
Okay. And I think we've generally, in many cases, have done that in the past, and I think it would be helpful. Okay, other questions on Emerge?
I just want to be sure I understand. Now, it looks to me like they're moving in the right direction, and now they have until next April the 1st to kind of meet all the expectations, and they can reapply.
They certainly can reapply again
In the next cycle?
in the next cycle.
Right.
Along with that, it's 1 year, they can reapply within 1 year, or they have to sit out a year before they reapply.
No, they're able to reapply this coming April 1st.
This coming April 1st.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the recommendation to affirm the decision of the local board?
So moved.
Got a motion, second. Any other discussion or questions? If not, we need a roll call vote. Phyllis, if you could call the roll.
Ms. Chesney?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hargrove?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Ralston?
Aye.
Ms. Floyd?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Aye.
Okay, the decision is unanimous. That is, we have affirmed the decision of the local board for Emerge. Now move to the Military Academy of Culture and Technology.
MAC. Their application was reviewed and denied. In the review, they did not meet in 3 of the 4 areas and partially met in financial planning capacity. They were provided with information about the areas that needed to be strengthened. They amended their application. It was reviewed, and academic plan design and capacity met or exceeded expectations. Operational plan and capacity partially meets. Financial plan meets and exceeds, and then the additional attachments meets or exceeds. Since they were still short in one area and partially met operational plan and design, the Shelby County Board denied the application. They appealed to the state board. They did not submit additional amendments to their application. The review committee reviewed their application materials, and held a capacity interview, and the rating from the review committee was that in academic plan and design partially meets, operational plan capacity partially meets, financial plan and capacity does not meet, and additional waivers was partially met. So based upon the ratings of our review committee, my recommendation is that you adopt the review committee's recommendations and affirm the Shelby County decision.
Okay. Questions on MAC? Okay, yes, with it. 4-3.
Just look over to me, you'll be fine. One question on, I have some comments, or I guess after the motion is made, but one question on the transportation. So they opted not to provide transportation, and I saw that was a concern, and I totally get that. Was that discussed in the interview? And did they have any ideas on how they would get, I mean, how they would ensure that they would be able to get students to the school? I mean, did they have any answer? I couldn't find anything in here that really gave an answer.
They did bring that up in the interview. Their kind of go-to is going to be just Memphis public transportation, stating that students would get bus passes or get a reduced rate bus pass, and that there was a bus line that's very convenient to the location that they want for the school. We did bring up the concern regarding special education students. And I think that's where things got a little muddier in terms of the cost around that transportation and whether or not they had the budgetary flexibility to make that happen. So regarding the transportation, it's not a requirement that charter schools provide transportation. However, we were concerned that, keeping your enrollment numbers up is very important regarding the finances, and making sure that students can get to your school is important too, and really kind of, do you have all the elements together to make it work?
Right, and federal law requires transportation for kids with disabilities.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of Gary and affirm the decision of the local board? So moved. Got a motion, second. Any further discussion or questions?
I do have a little, there's a common thread through all of these, which is special ed. And, I'm not a content expert, but I am an expert in special ed. So I spent a lot of time looking at the different applications, and I just want to say I feel that this application, more than any of the others in the area of special ed, was unwelcoming to kids with disabilities. I mean, they talked about studying the law to see basically the minimum they could get away with. No plan to include or exclude kids with disabilities, a half of a special ed teacher for an estimated 20 kids. So, I mean, I have issues you'll hear about later on some of the special ed stuff, but I just want to say, if we are going to approve charter schools, especially one that we're going to authorize, they need to be welcome to all kids. And I hope this school, it's a great plan other than kids like mine in a lot of ways. And I hope that if they do reconsider, that they will look at that and be thoughtful about whether they can serve those kids in this model or not. Because if they can't, I don't see this school doing well. So I just wanted to make that little speech. Thanks.
And I think there is a common thread here that just about all of these seem to be at least somewhat deficient in terms of special ed. Yes. And I guess I'm making the assumption that the ones that, for instance, Shelby County approved, that they're dealing with that much better than the ones that they did not approve. So hopefully that's the case. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Okay, Phyllis, if you could call the roll, please.
Ms. Chancey? Aye. Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Ralston?
Aye.
Ms. Floyd? Aye. Ms. Tucker?
Aye.
Okay. If the motion is approved, we will move to Scholastic Academy of Logistics and Transportation. Oh, charter school. Okay. I need to get up with all that background.
When their application was first reviewed, the ratings from the review committee was partially meets financial planning capacity and does not meet additional attachment areas. They were provided information about the areas of the reasons why it was denied, and did an amendment and resubmitted. The amended application was rated again, and the ratings were does not meet, partially meets, and partially meets. So they went up into the additional attachment areas. They appealed, it was denied by the Shelby County Board, appealed to the state board. They did not file any additional amendments to their application. And the state board's charter committee, review committee, met and came up with the following ratings. Academic plan, design, and capacity partially meets. Operational plan and capacity does not meet. Financial plan and capacity does not meet. And then there's facilities and additional areas that partially meets in those. So with that said, I recommend that you adopt the findings of the review committee and affirm the decision of the Shelby County Board.
Okay, questions on, what did they call it? Salt. Okay. Yes, Wendy.
Thank you. One of the questions I had is, in operations, you found that it does not meet, and one of the reasons was that their board didn't contain a level of expertise in all areas of charter school operations to give confidence. And I couldn't see a big difference between this board and the other boards, and I was just curious what was the red flag there on this board.
For this board, we felt like the sponsors were very engaged in the application process, but maybe that the governing board wasn't as engaged with the application process as other governing boards were. And, ultimately the charter is going to be given to the governing board. So you need a very highly engaged governing board that's going to be able to oversee that, and oversee that school. So that was a big red flag for us.
Okay. And then on the special ed here, I see a difference in desire between the last school and this one, but I still had concerns. They recognized these techniques work for all students, and that's great, but when asked how they would handle things, they just kind of listed the law. Here's the law we would use, and here are the techniques we would use, as opposed to really sort of setting out what it would look like on the ground. Which I think is going to be different in my opinion, than the next one we're going to talk about. So I just wanted to point that out, that they're moving in the right direction, but I just don't. And a lot of, these take a year for these. These people work tirelessly to prepare these, and most people don't have experience in special ed. So I get that that's a complex thing, but I also get that we can't be opening schools that aren't going to serve all students. So I hope that they will look into that and try to get some expertise and try again. In my opinion, they look like they could be a successful school if they fix their problems.
Okay. Other questions?
I have one.
Okay.
I'm seeing discrepancies between the amended application and then our state board charter review committee findings. Are they looking at the same data?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
So
I think that we have set a higher bar.
Okay. That's what
and I'm very proud of that. We trained our committee to use the state's rubric and to really look for high-quality applications. So I'm not necessarily surprised that in some cases the Shelby County Review Committee might have rated it one way and our review committee rated it a different way.
And I guess I've sensed, and going across all four here, that our committee was a little bit more rigorous than the local review. I just sensed that was the case. That we were slightly higher standard than what the local school board committee may have been looking at. Which I don't have any problem with it. I think we've got to make sure, particularly the ones that we're going to end up owning, perhaps, that there's a really solid application that deals with all these subjects. I think it's important to recognize that it is tough to get together. For somebody to put together a plan that meets all these objectives that we've got here, all the things that we got to deal with is a massive undertaking.
Well, that's what I was hoping, and I commend them for the high standards. Perfect.
Okay, other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve SALT? You got Teresa second? Okay, any other questions, discussion?
I'm sorry, was the motion to approve SALT or motion to approve the recommendation to deny SALT?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, you're right.
I know.
The recommendation to approve the recommendations of the Gary and the committee and affirm the decision that was made by Shelby County. Okay, and any other questions? Okay, call the roll, please.
Ms. Chancey.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Perry.
Aye.
Mr. Ralston.
Aye.
Ms. Sloan.
Aye.
Ms. Tucker.
Aye.
Okay, very good. The motion is approved. We will move to Cumberland Academy Charter School. Is it have an acronym?
Don't have an acronym, okay. The application from Cumberland County was reviewed by the Cheatham County Schools Charter Review Committee. The initial review rated it as does not meet an education plan, partially meets organizational plan, it does not meet business plan, it does not meet evidence capacity. They provided Cumberland Academy with the overall reasons for denying it. Cumberland Academy amended the application and resubmitted it. It was praised again by the review committee with us, and this time it was rated partially meets in all 4 areas, and it was ultimately denied by the Cheatham County Board of Education. Cumberland Academy appealed to the state board. No additional amendments were filed to the application. But at the public hearing on September 17th, it was evident there was a, I'm going to read this section 8 for you. Disconnect between the sponsors and the Cheatham County Schools' perception of the weight and meaning of a charter application. Cumberland Academy perceives the charter application as a vision document and as the beginning of a lengthy conversation to finalize details of the daily operations of a charter school. And Cheatham County Schools perceive the charter application as a final contract that must include all minute details needed to run a school. The reality is that the high-quality applications fall somewhere in the middle. That even the best charter applications will have something to occur between the application approval and the signing of the contract between the school district and the charter school, and the opening of the doors for its first students. However, an important part of the application review process is to gauge the applicant's capacity and budgetary flexibility to absorb and react to these possible changes. So as a result of the State Board's Review Committee looking at the documents, rating them, and also from the capacity interview, they rated Cumberland Academy as partially meets an academic plan and capacity, partially meets an operational plan and capacity, meets and exceeds in financial plan and capacity, and meets and exceeds in the additional attachments areas. So since there's 2 areas that were not rated as meet or exceed, rated partially meet, I'm going to recommend that you accept adopt the findings of the review committee and affirm Cheatham County Board of Education's action.
Okay. Wendy, question?
I didn't even have to raise my hand. Okay. I'm going to say on the front end that I have a lot of respect for our staff, and I'm new to this board, and so take it for what it's worth. But I have to disagree on this one respectfully with the staff, and from what I can tell from the review of the report, and that's why I wanted to read everything myself to make sure I wasn't missing anything. You have under education plan, special ed, and the AP 12th grade issue, and then under the organizational plan, a concern about division of labor for the dean of culture, and then a leadership concern. So is it okay to just address those? All right. So special ed, and I read the rubric to try to figure out, and I actually even I was trying to figure out, this special ed plan to me, as a parent, as a lawyer, as an advocate, this is what I want a kid to get in any school. And I've represented kids in Cheatham County, Davidson County, Williamson County, and this type of rigorous plan is not actually in action there. It may be written somewhere, I don't know, but it's not in action there. So I was happy to see this plan. And then when I saw that there were concerns, I wanted to see what a good plan looks like for a charter app. So I pulled the 2 highest performing charter apps from Nashville Prep and Liberty, which are both priority reward schools this year for performance and growth. So they're top 5% in the state, and their plans were not nearly as extensive as this one. So I know that was reviewed by MNPS, not us. We have a higher standard, but I guess if there's a question here, my question is what could be lacking? They go through an example of this is how it would happen with student A and teacher A, teacher B, teacher C. They have speech pathologists lined up. They clearly understand RTI2. They have a plan to address registered nurses if there are kids with higher needs. And I just felt like I couldn't foresee how it would be more thorough. So I guess that's where my question is, where was the concern on the thoroughness? And if that was something that was unanimous among the people who evaluated, or if some people who evaluated with expertise thought that they actually met or exceeded.
I think the concern was more kind of the overarching that the person in charge of special education director would also be in charge of the English language learner curriculum. So that person is handling both of those categories. Now they're projected, and they only plan to have one employee in that position for the first 2 years. So you're looking at, I think they projected 180 students in their second year of enrollment. The special education population that they used as their baseline was 14%. Now, granted, the area of Cheatham County doesn't have that great of a population of English language learners.
1%.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, that person would be handling both of the roles. So I think there was a concern in terms of handling the implementation of that plan and that one person being able to do that.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm reading it right, that each grade level had a person who would also be responsible for implementation at that grade level, right? I mean, they had that whole system worked out.
Well, and I said I think that capacity, that was true, but also within the first couple of years, staffing-wise, there was a concern around that.
And then the other education plan issue was that their curriculum for 12th grade, which is 8 years from now, right, it seemed to only offer AP courses. And there was a concern, what about kids who aren't at the AP level? And I think their response, at least in writing, was, we firmly believe all kids can learn at a high level. And I get that maybe you get 8 years from now and a kid isn't at an AP level. I mean, my kid wouldn't be at an AP level, and they'd have to deal with that. But again, I felt like that was something, was there a conversation about that in the capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. And even during our consensus conversation, and we discussed that in the capacity interview. And again, the response was that we believe all students can do this, and we believe in high expectations, and don't think that the review committee doesn't believe that as well.
Right.
But even looking at the matrix starting in 8th grade, they have all of their 8th graders taking Algebra 1, which again is wonderful, but I think the review committee was concerned regarding what was their backup plan and having the capacity to implement that backup plan should they see that students aren't being able to achieve at those high levels.
Okay. And then do you want me to just keep going? Okay. Get it done. On the organizational plan, there was a question of leadership because of the experience of the proposed principal, correct? And I get that, but then again, I look at Nashville Prep, the highest performing charter in the state, and Ravi Gupta had no experience other than what BES gave him in the fellowship. Mm-hmm. And it looked to me like they had a full fellowship plan to go to Valor, to do some work that would put them either at the same level as Ravi, and God bless them if their school performs that well, or even higher. And then you had a letter from Candace McQueen, who runs the Lipscomb Education Department, supporting their work. You had a letter from their mayor saying, I believe they can do this. And I guess I didn't see leadership questions in some of the other ones where I had leadership questions. And here, where I felt like they've got Todd Dixon, who's in Waiting for Superman, helping them. One of them worked at Liberty. I mean, they're doing all these things that to me are far and above what a lot of charters are doing, and then I saw leadership as an issue here, and it confused me.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this also came through, the concern from the committee's perspective is that even though they do have this fellowship plan that's going on, that on day one, what sort of management and experience do they have? Having those performance review conversations, having that understanding of the runnings of the school. And, the review committee recognizing we have a school director, a current charter school director on the committee, and she says, look, I'm not saying that running a district school gives you the experience that you need to run a charter school in which you are your own entity. However, I think that was a lingering concern, and then especially when we look at the distribution of responsibilities and making sure that they had the right people to do that. Speaking then to the other point was the dean of culture was also going to be the full-time reading teacher in their first year, and understanding that charter school budgets are very tight, so you are wearing multiple hats, but education is a huge part of their application, and being able to write the curriculum and be responsible for the character education of the entire school, as well as being the full-time reading teacher, we were just concerned that something might have to fall on that one.
And I get that, and I did what Wendy does. I checked the high-quality charters in Nashville, because those are the schools I go in all the time. And both National Prep and Liberty, the principal was the principal and the dean of culture. And, I mean, their positions were that you have to split those roles early on, and you have to do it well. So I guess my concern, and again, I don't mean this in any, you guys have done a lot of work, but I feel like these guys have done a lot of work too. And if we were using the sort of bar that you're using on these issues, then the two highest performing charters in Nashville wouldn't exist. And that concerns me, because I think, Cheatham County doesn't think so, but I think Cheatham County could use more choice. I think every family could use more choice, and I see this being a high-performing charter school. And so I am, my vote is going to have to be to respectfully disagree, but I just wanted to kind of go through those to make sure I understood everything that you guys were saying. So now I'm done.
Okay.
For now.
I guess I was a little bit more concerned on this one with the business plan that was there, and basically the financial capacity than it was some of the other things. I don't know, but that seemed to me to be a red flag.
Yes, and that was a discussion amongst the committee members, especially our finance person was concerned. Their budget does not include any fundraising or grant money, if you look at what their budget looks like. So from that perspective, they are kind of in a negative cash flow. But during the capacity interview, what we were able to discuss with them is that they do have a lot of fundraising potential that's going to make up some of that. They do have potential grants that are going to make up some of that cash flow, as well as they have a line of credit that would be able to substitute in where they would need to be. I don't think the committee felt like they were going to be able to meet their very ambitious $550,000 fundraising goal. However, they would be able to meet it to a point where they wouldn't have to draw on that line of credit, or they would just minimally have to draw on that line of credit.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question about Cheatham County. I know that this was their only applicant this year, and they denied it. Have they had previous applications, and do they have any that have been approved in Cheatham County? Do we know that?
They have not had previous, and they've not approved any. This is their first time
around.
In that.
And we've upped the criteria this year for charter.
Right.
Okay. Other questions?
Sure.
Yes, Dale.
The application review process and the application review committee, was there, in their deliberations, what were the main concerns that they had? Taking what Wendy said and taking the person just said, what were their main issues?
Capacity of special education, the course matrix and course progression, and the operations capacity, the leadership kind of in that, the lack of managerial or extensive professional development experience in the role to effectively implement the school plan. Those three things.
Okay. Other questions?
Well, I'm totally confused now. I don't know how to vote. Because that's some pretty valid points. Does this have to be voted on today, or can it be looked at more?
I think that, and Tess or Gary, I'm sorry, to answer that, let the experts answer that.
This one is, we have until, I didn't get the right date, but I want to say it's a Monday or a Tuesday prior to our October 31st board meeting is our 60-day window. So we, the Shelby County ones absolutely had to be voted on today. We do have more time, but, if we wanted to talk about it face-to-face, we wanted to do that here.
So but we wouldn't need to deal with it prior to
Yes.
the October meeting. Yeah. Okay, other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. I appreciate Wendy's concerns and what she brought to the discussion. However, I have to say I have some comfort knowing about our special board committee that we haven't had in the past with people whose expertise, I think, in what has been going on in this chartering application in the past I think it's pretty extensive, and I think I'm very thankful that we have that review by that committee before that comes to us for a vote.
And I have a comment to make too. I share the same comments that you have, Carolyn. The other thing too is what would change between now and our next board meeting? What would be new evidence that would cause us to vote in a consensus way where the majority would say we agree with the recommendations brought forth by the staff? What's going to change?
You could read this if you want.
We could.
The application. I mean, if you wanted more information, if you're confused and want
Because
more
I think you're
information.
the only one that has, I may be wrong about that, you're the only one that I understand has gotten all the documentation, reviewed it all, and come to a different conclusion. Because I came to this with the mindset as well, reading through everything that was documented and knowing we have this review committee and looking at their credentials and knowing that staff has met with them and worked with them, I was prepared to accept that recommendation. I'm not an expert, but I also do respect what you've done, Wendy, too. You've taken it above and beyond where anyone else has taken it to have this discussion today, and I admire that. I really do, and I thank you for that. And I think it does cause others to question, as Allison has indicated. But I just want to make sure that if we don't vote today, what is it that we all are saying we're going to do to come to a firm conclusion? Because if we go to a different route and it's contrary to what staff and the committee is suggesting, then I think we need to say what we're prepared to do to get to that point.
And am I right that if we did that, we would have to be signing a contract with this charter?
No. This would have added back to the
It would be,
chief
okay, this would go back, that's right.
Yeah,
Not Shelby, okay.
And I was, one of the comments similar to Carolyn's. I was a note here to commend the staff on getting together this review committee. I think they've done an excellent job of identifying people to review this, and the process that Tess has talked about. I think it's an excellent process. I think it's done a good job of getting it put together. So I think that based on the discussion and based on the people that are on that review committee, I place a lot of faith in where they come out, and believe that they've done it in a very legitimate manner. Okay.
Was this a unanimous decision by the review committee on this particular application?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion to approve the recommendation of the
Yes.
staff, the review committee, and to affirm the decision of the Chief County Board of Education. Is there a second? Got a second?
Second.
Got a second. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Phyllis, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Hartgrove.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Perry.
Aye.
Mr. Ralston.
Aye.
Ms. Webb.
Aye.
Ms. Tucker.
No.
Okay, the motion is approved. We do appreciate your looking at this, and I think you raised some very legitimate questions so forth, and I I would add that, you know, we don't expect this board to have unanimous approval of everything. In times in the past, I think we perhaps needed more discussion and more dissent than we've had. So I think the points you made were excellent, and appreciate you making those points. And again, I would commend Gary, Tess, the other part of the staff that's been involved in putting this review committee together. I think it's a good process, and certainly one that I think we can defend and be proud of. So thank you for doing that. Might add that we announced the meetings for 2015. I hope that you probably already have those on your calendar. We didn't put them on this agenda, but they are January the 30th, April 10th, July the 24th, and October the 23rd. So hopefully those on your calendar. And at least at this point, we would assume that that's the meeting date, which is a Friday, and we would continue our practice of having a workshop on Thursday before that, an evening meal Thursday night, and then the meeting on Friday morning. Okay. Any additional comments or questions or statements? Anything from staff? Gary?
Just for your information, we still have 2 appeal hearings to hold, one for Robertson County, one for Beta County. They'll be on the October agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one additional comment, just the fact that, you know, to commend the review committee, but to also, you know, say that I think that a few of these applications were really strong, and I hope that folks will take that to heart and potentially think about reapplying.
I agree. Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah, good comment. Okay, other comments or items for the committee? Board? Okay, if not, I certainly appreciate you being here. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good trip home. Okay. Good job. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it. Many of them have a